Hello, America. Dave Hodges here, host of the Common Sense Show. We are the show that's freeing America one enslaved mind at a time. We're going to play something for you here. And I did an interview with Indy Peterson, and he has connected a whole lot of stuff. I mean, it's almost too numerous to mention, but we're going to break this into several parts. It has to do with UFO disclosure, has to do with cattle mutilations. Epstein properties being next to the most virulent UFO hotspots in America. You go, what? Oh, yeah, yeah, absolutely. Listen, I couldn't make this stuff up. This is absolutely incredible what this guest has brought forth. He gets original information from South America. We'll even get into untapped gold from perhaps a pre-Adamic society. This is what's in store over the next several segments. Today, you're going to get part one, and we'll focus mostly on the cattle mutilations, location of Epstein properties. And I got to tell you, this is one of the most interesting interviews I have ever done. And I hope sincerely that you'll share this far and wide, because I don't know that the algorithm's going to be really friendly with this. Hello, America, and to our friends around the world. Welcome to the Common Sense Show. We are the show that's freeing America one enslaved mind at a time, defending God, family, country, and the oppressed. We're really glad to be with you. We'd ask that you would share since we're on all digital platforms, and thank you for helping push our podcast and radio show to the upper limits of rankings. You guys are awesome for doing that. We do appreciate your support. We have a really interesting show for you today. We have Indy Peterson on. And I was telling him before we went on air that I believe Indy is the only person that's linking the zip codes of Epstein properties and UFO hotspots. Now, to me, that's an interesting correlation. We're also going to see if there's any cause and effect in this situation. Before we go to Indy, I need to let you know that we're brought to you by Noble Gold. And we're coming to you from the Noble Gold Studios. And listen, Trump may think he has a peace agreement, and I pray he does. He's worked hard to get it. But Israel's throwing the fly in the ointment here, saying they're going to stay in Lebanon. And I don't know that Iran's going to relent on the Strait of Hormuz. We're already going to have some pain. Let me just say this to you. The banks are not doing well because the dollar is faltering. They can keep your money. Dodd-Frank 2010. That's a law that was passed after the 2008 crash. A lot of people don't know about it. They can also do the same with your retirement if it's associated with the bank. Noble Gold has solutions for you. I know because I've been a customer for over 9 years. Let me just give you a number. Call. They will not pressure you to do a thing. You literally have to close your own deal. I know, I speak from experience. So call 877 646 5347 877 646 5347. Well, we're going to look at something here called UFO zip codes, one Epstein property near New Area 51, Dulce, and two more inside the Bermuda Triangle. Our guest, Indy Peterson, has written a book called Sacrificing Humanity. The UFO is a portent of nuclear war. So we got concerns on both ends. Indy, I'm glad you're on the show here. Welcome, first time appearance. It's really great to have you on. Can you tell our audience just a little bit about your background and how you became interested in this topic?
Yeah, I was purchasing a island property down in Patagonia. It's one of the most remote regions in the world. And I was building a $60 million resort. I had the number one architect in the world, Antoine Predock, who's kind of like the Frank Lloyd Wright of today. He died recently, unfortunately. Um, and paid him and all expenses to get down there, $30,000 retainer, I believe it was, and plus all best hotels. And so we were building this resort, and the locals told me the island you're buying property on is a known UFO base. And I did not believe in UFOs, so I laughed at them and just ignored them. And it turns out that they're probably right, because I experienced an orb closer than probably any human that lived to tell about it, especially with all the 100 people that Gary Nolan has examined that were much farther away from those orbs than I was, and 25 of those 100 died, and the others had serious brain damage. But not all of them do that. So I had one right here, 2 feet in front of me.
Wow.
I could see inside the engine and everything that operates it. Um, and yeah, that's how I got started in this. Turns out I viewed the largest cattle mutilation in South American history that happened directly across the island and there's a narrow fjord. It's about a mile across, depending on where you are in the fjord from the mainland. And right there on the mainland, I witnessed the largest cattle mutilation in South American history, where hundreds of cows were mutilated, dozens in one single night. And they're cored out with surgical precision with their eyes and their anus and their sex organs. And it's a perfectly round circular hole, cauterized. And there's orbs flying around at the same time. So the locals are in a panic. They called I think it was a psychosis collectivo or something like that. Can't remember the Spanish word, but it was something like that, basically mass psychosis.
Mm-hmm.
And so they had to bring in the government clear, 1,300 miles to the north, and to calm the masses who are hysterical over it, because at the same time their cows are having the blood sucked out of them. They have these orbs flying all over. So there's been quite a number of incidents down there in Patagonia and Brazil where and it's the cattle mutilation is very illustrative, because it disproves all the existing theories that other theories other than UFOs. If you've got a second, I can go through those really quickly for you.
Sure.
All right. So number one common theory is, well, it's the U.S. government testing radiation on cows, or biological testing of some sort. Well, that's ruled out because the military, when the U.S. military comes down to Patagonia or even to Chile, in Valparaiso, everybody knows, because their ships are sitting off the coast. They're short-haired gringos are in the Starbucks drinking caramel macchiatos, and so everyone knows. And this was not one of those years. And plus, even when they did come in the past, they're clear up 1,300 miles to the north of Patagonia. Number two, well, the Chilean military, no. I've never seen them in the 20 years I've been doing business down there in that area. And they are massively underfunded. So they don't have the budget to play around with hundreds of cows. Next explanation that comes up frequently about these cattle mutilations, well, it's Satanists or pranksters or someone just pulling stunts. Well, no, that's completely ruled out. That's why this is so illustrative, is because of the region. There's a dirt road, and the few families that own the way in and the way out, big ranchers, they're interrelated family. So they know each other and they talk to each other frequently, and nobody can go out there in the winter without them knowing. And second, it was in the winter in the rainforest, and so you can't take one step without sinking this far in the muck. So, and there was no tracks. So all these other potential explanations was ruled out. Well, there's one more, helicopters. Well, we tried to get a helicopter down there for a TV show, a big one. And there was several people working on it. It was a major project, and it took us days of effort just to get one down there. So I don't think anyone's going to go through that effort. So all these explanations are ruled out. Plus, the public in mass was seeing them, and this was a story that was reported on the equivalent of ABC, CBS, and NBC News in Chile. It was picture after picture after picture of cow and sheep being cored out. They almost needed to rate it X with pictures of anuses and sex organs being cored out. R rating on there. It was pretty gory. It really was. And the ranchers are obviously very upset losing prize animals. They're worth thousands of dollars. So they're not happy about it. And so that's a very good example of what's happened down there in that region. And then the orb I experienced later.
The explanations you get that you listed as possibilities you were rejecting, I totally agree with your rejection, and mainly because of the surgical precision that's involved.
Yes.
Okay, pranksters aren't going to have that sophistication. And you said the access to the area is strained at certain times of the year. And I totally agree with you. I grew up in Colorado, and I can't remember how old I was. I might have been junior high, high school, where we had some mutilations in the southern part of our state. And Linda Moulton Howe, who I'm sure you're familiar with,
Yes. I've
Linda Moulton,
interviewed her.
yeah, but she covered this pretty extensively, and that was the first time I ever heard of her. And this was not a natural event. So, and there's other theories too. I've heard this one too. They're excising DNA for whatever purpose, but that didn't make sense to me either because why do you need to do all the other surgical alterations?
And who's the
Yeah,
they in that?
pardon me?
Who is the they in that?
It's just a general explanation you'll hear from different sources.
Oh, okay.
And so, in fact, that was actually one of the speculations when I was a kid, and I was first exposed to this topic. But it is really quite bizarre. I think we should be glad it's not being done to us, at least as far as we know. When you encountered this orb, did it attempt to communicate with you?
Well, yeah, in a sense, in that it showed intelligence and it knew we were there. So to tell you that story, my business partner and I were driving up the Camino Austral. This is dirt road. It's called Pinochet's Folly. And they pronounce it with a Pinochet instead of Pinochet like the French, where he tried to put in this dirt road where it's like Andes Mountains and Fjord, Andes Mountain Fjord. So it was like impossible territory to get to. So he opened up territory that was never had access to humans. And so you see gauchos out there living with their roaming herds like they did for thousands of years, dressed like they did thousands of years ago. And they're
Mhm.
quite comical to see, and you can't take their picture because they get really upset. But they live like very like nomads must have lived long, long ago. And so that opened up the territory to those people. And there's nobody out there. So my business partner and I were driving back on that dirt road at night. We had a 1,300-mile trip to make all the way back to Valparaiso. And I was at 3 a.m. I pulled over. We hadn't seen a car since we left the last town. Nothing. So there's probably nobody within 100 miles of us in any direction. We're out in the middle of a national park at 3 a.m. in the winter. So not likely anyone's there. And first, we saw it way off in the distance, looking like a star, and then it's zipping around unlike a star, doing odd quick turns and materializing and dematerializing repeatedly. And then it shows intelligence, like almost like it sees us seeing it.
Yeah.
And because we're watching it, it comes to us, which when you talk about communication, that was your question. That's sort of a communication in a sense. It knows you're there.
You know,
And
you're almost describing like a guardian of the gate. Um, I'm going to say something here I've never said publicly before. And people know I saw the Phoenix lights. At that time, my family and I were living about 4 miles from Interstate 17, and the Phoenix lights came down I-17 from north to south. And I was out in my driveway shooting baskets. And it was about 9:15 at night. And I saw these lights, and it was even though it was 4 miles away, everything went absolutely quiet. All the birds, all the dogs barking, it was totally eerie. And I'm going to tell you a psychological feeling I had. I watched this because it was going slow. I probably watched it for 30 seconds to a minute. And when I was looking at it, And my neighbor was over shooting baskets with me too, the same thing. And we're looking at this, and I have to tell you, honestly, Indy, I felt like it was telling me, don't look at this. Don't look
Wow.
at this. Um, and the now I knew someone at a local Air Force base who was he was in a position to observe. I don't want to give away what he did totally. And he told me, he was actually a student of mine, the college I was teaching at, and he told me, he said, it's the unveiling of our new technology is what we were told, and they wanted to make it public. I don't think that was it. I think that
Yeah,
was a
I don't
cover,
either.
I think that was the cover story he was given.
That's a
But
good cover story.
but
You know why? You know why?
why?
Well, because we don't have control over them. That's the best evidence that they're not ours, because they're literally showing up at our nuclear launch sites and starting countdowns. So they're not doing things that are good for our side. And if it's an intelligence failure, as was brought up in the congressional hearing, it's the greatest intelligence failure in all of history that would make 911 look like nothing in comparison.
That's true. You know, and we have the legends of MJ-12 and the meeting with Eisenhower and the, Truman before that. I'm familiar with that. Uh, You're going to hold this first part here because we'll get into the MJ-12 thing, and it's pretty interesting discussion. The thing that I think that people need to be aware of is this guy is a big time researcher and he knows all the players. And he confessed, as I did, we used to go to think tank groups and sign non-disclosure agreements to talk about this. Anyway, we'll be back with more. We're going to do three parts on this, and I think you're going to find it very enlightening. Hey, thanks for joining us for this part, and we'll be posting it soon. Please share it far and wide. If you've not gone to our TV show, you should. thecommonsenseshow.tv. We're changing directions and we're really kind of going into areas like this, along with our geopolitics. We'll do a mix of both. But people really like it. We're doing Earth changes, the UFO thing. And of course, isn't it funny? We're in this series, we're going to marry Epstein with UFO and his properties. And it's enlightening. Let me tell you, it's really enlightening. Anyway, go to thecommonsenseshow.tv, sign up for our newsletter at thecommonsenseshow.com, upper right hand corner, click on the link, put in your email. That's all we need. And you'll get an update of everything we do for the previous 24 hours.